Right, let's go again. Maybe we'll, by about 6 o'clock tonight, we might have shot this one. Ari, you lovely lot. Hello and welcome to NE1's Mental Health Podcast with me, Ray Elliott, and my good pal, Sam Warner. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Are you good?
I'm surprisingly good, mate.
Wonderful.
I'm feeling better by the minute.
You look great.
We're absolutely delighted to be joined by Carl Thompson, or otherwise known as Adventure Carl on the socials. Carl, you are a freelance photographer, adventurer, traveller, outdoors enthusiast, doing your mountain rescue course, I believe. Mountain leader. Get it right, Ray. Yeah, so you do a lot of stuff outdoors. I'll let you sort of give a description as to exactly what you do, but we'll talk about what we've because the plan was for this one, we were going to go out and do a hike and then come back and have a good chat, because we all know that the great outdoors is really good for the noggin.
It certainly is.
Yeah. So, Carl, give us a little bit of an intro as to who you are and what you do.
So I'm a freelance photographer. I've been doing that for about 7-8 years now, full time for the last 2 and a bit. Predominantly outdoor based stuff. So a lot of social media based things through Instagram. My account following sort of grew before COVID to a point where you've got brands and whatnot getting in touch with you, asking you to do social media campaigns. And yeah, it's just sort of went from there, taking on opportunities going here, there and everywhere. I've been quite fortunate with some of the jobs that I've had in the last couple of years. And just started the journey into becoming a mountain leader, with the aim to sort of lead groups out there and also continue my journey as a photographer and see where that takes me.
Awesome. Sluice lad?
Sluice lad.
Sluice.
Although, well, it could be disputed by people there, because I grew up on a farm on the outskirts of Seaton Sluice. So all the way through my childhood, I was, depending on which village was deemed the coolest, I could be from Delaval, Hartley or Sluice, but I was never from Blythe.
Which
Listen,
Sam's
I'm bringing
Blythe.
Blythe back. Bringing Blythe
Good
back.
man. Which part of Blythe though?
The lovely bit.
South Beach?
No, I'm very new. I'm literally, all I know of Blythe at the minute is I'm near the Broadway roundabout.
Okay.
And the gym is at the end of my street.
Okay.
Ridley Park is half a mile.
Perfect.
And the beach is 1 mile, and it's
Good stuff.
mega, and the people are mega. Everybody I've met in Blythe,
Yeah.
Everyone's just lovely, man.
Well, the reason I asked if it was South Beach is because that's known as North Sluice.
Is it? Is it? Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, lovely.
Much like Shields is West Tynemouth.
Yeah. Although there's a lot of gentrification of the area, isn't there?
Yeah, it definitely feels that way to me. Obviously, I've been visiting, for listeners, my wife's, she's a Geordie girl. She's Jarrah family, but she grew up in a whole slew of different places. She was in Walker, she was in Jesmond, she's been all over the place. But I was visiting over the years, obviously spending time with you, Ray, up in Sluice, family here in Tynemouth. And in the 12, 13 years I've been coming up, you can feel the difference. I mean, we're in Tynemouth now, and Whitley Bay especially. It's just, you can feel like an artisan kind of. I've got family in Brighton, and it feels like the Hovey Brighton kind of, just there's a real indie. Yeah, it's cool. There's a real vibe. It's creeping up. My plan was, when I bought in Blythe, was that in 10 years' time, it would have made its way up there. And
it's going to be the cultural hub.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I've got young kids, and there's a lot to do up there. And the house we bought was mega for the money, and like I say, the people are mega.
I love Blythe.
Oh, it's cool.
Oh, Spend so much time there, right?
Uh-huh.
I know. I live in Sluice, but I seem to, like, I say this in my life. I'm like, I'm always in Blythe doing stuff. Right, yeah.
Awesome.
So how did it all start then, Carl? Obviously, you brought up on a farm.
Yeah.
In Sluice, which is a beautiful part of the world, lovely outdoors there. How did you really get into doing what you're doing?
Well, I mean, in terms of like finding my love for the outdoors, that started from a very early age. Like growing up on the farm, like I didn't have friends in the street that I could knock around with, so I spent an awful lot of time just wandering around the woods on my own, getting up to mischief. Or like Seaton Delaval Hall, I would be in the gardens, or like running around playing in there. So I've always sort of had this affinity for the outdoors, and felt quite at home in it. And then in terms of like my journey as a photographer, that sort of started probably about 10 years ago. I started to sort of take it seriously. My dad was, as well as being a farmer, he was always a keen photographer. My mum was an artist, so I always sort of like looked up to them for like their creative side. I was a musician for many years, and that was always the dream. And then when that sort of like started to fizzle out, the creative outlet sort of switched to photography, and I started taking it a lot more seriously. And yeah, I was just doing a lot of like random cool stuff on weekends away from work, and I was document them kind of things. And from then it just became this like insatiable passion where I was just like, I need to go out, I need to go there, I need to shoot that. Like, that looks really cool. I want to do this, you know. And you start planning trips based on like, what can I photograph when I'm there? Like, what does that ridge look like on that mountain? Oh, let's go up there for sunrise. And, you know, you just like crazier and crazier stuff in it, but it's like so good for you. Like, just, you know, the reward you feel afterwards of like, I've actually accomplished something on my weekend, and I have this proof here, evidence to show off to the world.
Yeah, well, if you don't put it on Instagram, it never happened, eh? That's
exactly, yeah. Like, we were joking on Friday that if it's not on Strava, then it didn't happen. So.
Well, listen, you just alluded to it there, boys. On Friday, you took us out, Cal, didn't you?
Yeah.
We met up with you on Friday, as we record now on Sunday. And we had a lovely hike, a walk and talk, and it was mega. It was gorgeous. Tell us a bit where you took us. We were up on Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah, so I'd heard that you had never visited Hadrian's Wall.
That's true.
So yeah, I was going to take you up the Cheviot, but it's quite a slog.
Yes.
So I thought I'll go easy on you.
Yeah.
It's just the first one.
Yeah,
Next time we can go there.
That'd be ace.
But yeah, we did like a 7-kilometer stretch of the wall. So we started at Steel Rig, past where the tree was. God rest its soul. Which, yeah, you pointed out
that was
even,
sombering. That was for me. I said to you guys on the day, I've never been there anyway, so I never saw it in its bloom. But obviously, it's imprinted in all of our psyches is that beautiful image, you know, as it sits between the belly of those two mounds. But I never expected to feel. It was like being at a grave.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
Really, really quite sobering. Yeah.
So I still urge people who've never been to still go, because you still sort of like feel the importance of what it was and what it meant to the not just the region, but the whole country. I think everyone was mourning about that. But yeah, so from there we continued on. We went past Housted's Roman fort, which I knew blew both of your mind with how old it was, and like you know, just how well the walls were put together. Stuart Mason here was losing his mind.
Going back to the van, weren't we, to get a level?
I was geeking out. It was so good. But I love that about Northumberland. You know, I've seen and been a lot of places, but I still get that feeling when I go back. I'm like, this is amazing. And that's what I love what you do. I know we joke that you missed a Northumberland. Maybe this is what his calendar's going to be called when he brings that up. But we're really blessed to live in such a beautiful place. And what you do is you showcase that, you know, and I think that's fabulous. And a lot of people who will talk about your socials and how to follow you, they probably wouldn't even realise that a lot of that stuff was there.
Absolutely. And
we talked about the North Coast 250, which that's a relatively new thing, isn't it?
The Northumberland 250.
Yeah.
North Coast 500.
That's Scotland. It. I'm getting mixed up.
That's the Scotland one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Northumberland 250 around Northumberland. Yeah.
Which
a friend of mine came up with a few years ago, and it's very good.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's a 250-mile road trip around Northumberland. So it takes in sections of the North Pennines, Hadrian's Wall, up to Kielder, across through the borders up to the Cheviot Hills, and then down the coastline from Berwick. So you're taking in like Holy Island, Bamburgh Castle, Dunstanburgh. It's like Warkworth, and then you'll come back inland through Rothbury and Otterburn. I think that takes you back down to Hexham, if I remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, it takes in sort of so much. There's like a huge variation of landscapes.
You were saying yourself on Friday, weren't you, that like as native as you are to the area, that actual trip was taking you to places you're like, whoa.
I thought I knew Northumberland pretty well.
Yeah.
After like many a trip as a kid, when my dad would take me to like Belsay Hall and the Farne Islands and stuff like that. Cragside, we used to be all over the place. But yeah, when I first did this route, there was so much that I had no idea. Not only was it in Northumberland, but just how beautiful it was, you know. So
I can't wait to do it.
To be asked to go out and capture it, that was a good weekend.
So if people are listening now and they're thinking, I really want to get into that, want to see that and get out there, you don't necessarily have to have a camper van. You can just do it on weekends.
Oh God, yes, people cycle it. You're into that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for me, but
get your Leica on, Ray. Let's go.
It does sound fantastic. It would take me like months to do that, I reckon. But yeah, so where could they find more information on that, or check out the route? Or
So for that, if you search on Google for Northumberland 250, or on Instagram it's NLand 250, and you'll find sort of like the best of the region on there, and loads of travel tips and stuff. And yeah, there's a whole other sections to that business that you'll see from there, like got a coffee shop. There's defenders that you can hire to go and do the route in. We've got an annual magazine that comes out, like a coffee table book about the area. So we're currently shooting the 4th issue of that. So yeah, it's all sorts of stuff Northumberland. It's good. It's nice to be involved in something that's helping the local tourism.
yeah, it must be a real privilege to get to do that for a job. I just think, you know, we've talked to a few people on this podcast where they've managed to bring, you know, the hobbies and what they're passionate about and make it the reality, make it their job. And that's exactly what you've done. You give up that corporate world a little while ago, didn't you? And you took the plunge.
Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to get offered voluntary redundancy from a job that I was going to leave anyway. So stuck it out for a few extra months and skipped off into the sunset. But yeah,
Literally.
it was, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my first job that I got as a full-time freelancer was for Lenovo, the tech company, and we were on Robinson Crusoe Island, which I didn't think was real. To be honest, I thought it was that unreal that I ignored the first email that they sent me, because I was like, "There's no way that's a job.
Pranked.
Don't be stupid." But yeah, sure enough, I ended up out on this remote island off Chile for 2 months, documenting a humanitarian project out there called Work for Humankind.
That was your first gig?
That was my first proper gig as a
Wow.
full-time freelancer, and I was like, "This is great.
This is
Well,
the life.
this
isn't
is
it?
That's something I'd
fantastic,
like
this.
to pick up on for listeners, you know, because you alluded to there, Ray, about people we've had on this particular podcast where hobbies and loves and passions have managed to turn those into life. I don't like to use the word careers, but like your purpose.
Mhm.
The environment being what's lending that, isn't it? Whether it's the surfers we've spoken to, yourself out there photographing the rugged inland stuff, and just the outdoors itself, the environment we're in, it's amazing. But to get to doing that, there's lots of people who are doing jobs and living lives where, you know, the job's maybe not fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's not a straightforward thing to leave a secure job
No.
with your mortgage, all of your responsibilities, to take up something that you love.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I mean, you know, I know you're saying they were offering you redundancy. That must have.
Yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith. I was quite fortunate in the timing of it all. So like, obviously, redundancy. I'd recently sold a house, so I was financially, I was like, I'm all right for, you know, the next year and a half, 2 years. I was like, worst case scenario was to get another job. So I just thought, well, like, let's enjoy this while it lasts and see how long it lasts, and it's still going. So
Awesome.
you know, it's just having that sort of confidence in yourself, you know, the belief that you can make it work. And yeah, when you start off on your own, it is a pretty daunting thing to do, especially with freelance stuff. There's no regular income really. It's very sporadic. You have peaks and troughs. Like sometimes I'll have like 10 jobs on at once in a month. Other times I'll go 4 months and not have a single thing come in. And you think, oh God, what am I going to do here? But like you make it work. But it's surprisingly how little you need to get by if you actually strip away all the stuff that's completely unnecessary in life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it does make you sort of recalibrate how you think about.
Yeah,
things
that
and what you're
seems to
doing.
be a really therapeutic side. As fearful as it might be to somebody who think, God, I really want to do that, whatever it is, bottling wine or whatever it is your passion is.
Mhm.
But actually, you, in a way, your hands forced to sort of, you might have to downsize the car or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But there's something liberating about that as well, isn't there?
Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely.
We talked to Sally McGee about this very thing
Right.
and about travel, and she was like, look, you know, you'd be surprised when you boil it down to what you need, the
Yeah.
necessities.
I think, what did she say? I watched Sally's film, which is linked into the podcast for anybody who hasn't listened to it yet. Go back and have a look at the link. Out of Step, and she says it in our chat with her, but also in the film. I think we mentioned it on Friday. Their sort of family sort of mantra is doing over having.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and when they did it, it was just stripped down to the necessities. You know, what do we need to be able to do what we want to do?
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of looking at it. isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
So do you find yourself just out in remote places for long periods of time with very little stuff, should we say?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the longer periods of time I've been away, it's not been like completely remote. It's been limited. I've had like, things that we get used to, like internet.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time when I was on Robinson Crusoe, there wasn't any internet unless I was in like one of the buildings where we'd set up a special hub there, and it was actually really nice. Your phone wasn't pinging all the time. There was no like, oh, I wonder what such and such is doing on social media. You just kind of like detached from all that and allowed me to just focus on what I was actually doing.
We don't often get the chance to do that nowadays, do we? It must have been pretty liberating, eh? To just be like, yep, I've just went off grid.
That's one of the other things that I love about going out in the outdoors. I mean, you might sort of look at it and think that's quite dangerous. You've got no signal. What happens if something goes wrong? But I mean, if you're sort of sensible with what you do and you know where you're going, it's nice to go somewhere with no signal and just like not have to worry about it.
That's the thing I really noticed on Friday when we done that hike. And there was a bit of graft involved.
Oh, it was you couldn't be a slouch.
Yeah,
and a lot of BS came out of you.
No comment. But we got to that peak, didn't we? And we sat and we had lunch, and I just remember that feeling, and it just was like, it was so peaceful, so calm, and like you say, all that background noise and the chatter and the phones pinging, it wasn't happening. You just sat there having chats. It was just so peaceful, so relaxing. And I'm not a big hiker by any stretch of the imagination. It's something and I know we have talked about this, it's something I'd really love to get into more, but I really understood what it was about there in that moment.
Yeah,
I was
that's
just like,
nice.
yeah,
That's
I was just
nice,
like, this is it.
Well, we were saying on the way up, weren't we? Like, I could feel the body coming for food. I can feel the food. And then when you do sit down somewhere beautiful like that, you've earned it. That food, that nutrition you're getting is just what you need. And then you get up and you go again, and it's gorgeous, isn't it?
You can always argue it tastes better as well when you're out there.
Well, I had ham and peas pudding stotties like a true Geordie, so they're always good any occasion, aren't they? But yeah, I think, and we talked about this as we started, about how getting out there and being in nature is absolutely wonderful for your mental health. And I think a lot of people, when you're allowed, how long were we allowed out the house in lockdown?
A whole hour.
An hour, yeah.
Yeah, but you saw a lot of people were like, right, I'm really going to use this time and I'm going to go and do something like that. And it's become quite big. I would imagine you've seen more followers maybe, or more people getting into it.
I've definitely noticed it's busier outdoors.
Yeah.
Usually it would be like Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, everywhere would be pretty busy because everyone's off work. I don't know whether it's people have changed their work-life balance, but you can go out any day of the week and you'll see quite a lot of people out in the hills, and you're thinking, well, this never used to happen.
Yeah.
Like, is it because these people have made themselves available to do this, or have they always been available and they've now realised I should probably be out there more? And it's, they're just reaping the benefits. But it is good to see. It is really good to see. A lot more people are doing that. And I feel like the more people who are going out and enjoying it, the more they sort of have an understanding and respect for the outdoors, so they're looking after it a lot better. I feel there's a few places that have trouble, but I've started to notice like a lot less litters being left places. You see more people picking stuff up as they're hiking out and stuff, and it's good to see. It's like it's heading in a positive sort of direction.
Yeah, because that always knocks me when you're walking somewhere like.
Didn't we see a bag of dog shit hanging off a tree, didn't we, in the woods?
Yeah, it was like an art installation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Shit tree.
Yeah, you've went through the trouble of picking it up and putting it in a bag,
and then you just hanging it on a tree,
saving it for the next few months.
Yeah, that's
years. I think
that takes a special.
It is a bit of a shame, that, isn't it? But I think we said we were having a chat at the time when we were walking, weren't we, about like in lockdown. Obviously, people couldn't get away, and as you've alluded to there, Cal, people are getting better now. But initially, there was just a flood into where you could go, so people started wild camping who weren't wild campers, leaving barbecues burning in fields, and we have to learn, don't we? And again, coming back to what you said a minute ago about, I think when you're out there, your phone just, it's not about your phone. Obviously, people are taking pictures and grabbing stuff, but just being out there, walking in nature, it does something really, really good for you, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? And the chat we were having, it just seemed to just be so organic with what we were doing, and you just feel more open to talk. And I think it's something we want to explore with this podcast. With this podcast, what we're doing, we're maybe going to set up a walk and talk group. So go out maybe once a month and just chat. Just talk it through, be out in nature. And I just think it can only be a good thing. So we'll we'll start putting some stuff up about what direction we're going to go in with that. But
Yeah.
hopefully, as a mountain leader, you could maybe you
Yeah.
could maybe take us out.
I would be more than happy to
That'd be
come along and
cracking.
help you out with that. Yeah, definitely.
If there's anybody listening that has a bit of trepidation, they maybe want to get into it, but they're like, oh, I don't want to end up in trouble, or where would I start? What would be your advice for someone to like just get out there, and what is there any certain trails you would say to start off on?
I mean, if you just want a start of getting outside and getting sort of fit and into shape for going out into hills, I mean, anywhere down the street, go to your local park, walk along the beach. You don't have to start off by going straight into the hills in the middle of nowhere. There's, as long as you're outside, you're gonna receive the same benefits mentally from just walking down the street to the park as you would spending all day in the hills. So yeah, there's numerous walking groups online you'll find on Facebook, with loads of inspiration in terms of like straightforward routes you can follow. I mean, in the northeast, like the Simonside Hills are a prime example. Like, loads of people go there. You can't really go wrong. Like, you're walking across the hills in the heather, but the track's really easy to follow, so it's a pretty safe one to start at. But yeah, like even like we say, Hadrian's Wall, there's plenty of ups and downs on that.
Yeah.
We did 14k altogether, but we climbed up, what was it, 560
yeah,
odd meters or something?
Yeah, just under 600 meters.
So,
yeah.
Not in one go, obviously, but enough to
across the wall. Yeah, I mean,
the
you've
legs
done it. I
going.
mean, we're all fit lads, and we knew. We had a couple of beautiful beers after, didn't we? 2 pints, and wow, they hit the spot.
What do you call them? Noggin wobblers.
Noggin wobblers. Yeah.
Yeah, they were certainly noggin wobblers. Give me noggin a shake after that. So I'm probably a bit biased because I think Northumberland's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Well, it is.
It
Though,
is.
Ray. It is.
Yeah,
It
I
actually
certainly
is,
feel like it is.
Mm.
But you've been really fortunate. We looked at some of the places you've been. How does Northumberland compare for you to other parts of the world?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, we don't have the big spiky mountains that you would maybe get in northern Norway or things like that. But what we do have is like some beautiful remote areas. Like the Cheviot Hills are like rolling hills as far as the eye can see. Like over into Scotland, like the Border Ridge is like a lovely walk. It links into the Pennine Way, and you feel like you're days away from civilization there, when in fact you're probably like an hour, a couple of hours from the nearest little village or hamlet. We've got some of the most pristine beaches in the world. Well, not the world, in the UK. I'm getting ahead of myself there. In the UK, there's some beautiful stretches that aren't really that well known. I was going to name a few there, but I'll probably get lynched.
Keep that on your hat. I'm trying to discover them at the minute.
There'll be some angry farmers after me.
Yeah. But when you say in the world, I would say that it's true. They might not be exotic and, of the heat and the palm trees, but in terms of untouched, pure and natural, absolutely.
Yeah. And then like going beyond landscape, I mean, the history we've got in Northumberland is phenomenal. We've got the Roman wall. What was that built in? What was it? 122 AD.
Yeah. We were trying to work out stuff. I mean, 800 men in that fort. I mean, it was. What was the rainwater? They were using the rainwater as like a
latrine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like
it was the engineering and the carving that you were saying about the stone.
the stone is so hardy. I don't even know how they've done it.
How they did what they did to that stone. Yeah.
And it shows because it stood there so long. They were showing you the photographs of the mock-up of what it would look like.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it, and
it's there. It's
yeah,
still
that's
sat
it.
there.
It's hardly decayed.
It's actually quite mesmerising and takes your breath. It took my breath away a little bit, actually.
Yeah,
it
we were
was
like sort of
wow. This is here, like now.
Yeah.
And on the way out, we saw the mock-up, the whole thing would have looked like, and it's some structure just in the middle of nowhere.
You think of that history as well, right? So you've got the Romans, and then you look at Holy Island and the Vikings invading.
Yeah,
that's a massive part of our history.
Yeah,
and
global history.
Yeah, I've got a funny little story about that.
Right.
My wife mightn't be the best pleased that I'm going to tell this. But, do you know? So like shows like Vikings.
Yeah.
And we're watching the show, and they land on Holy Island, don't they? And we're like really into it, and I'm like, isn't that amazing to think that just like an hour up the road that took place? And she goes, yeah, on the show. And I've gone, no, like it really happened. She goes, Vikings weren't real, Ray. They're just characters. They're just characters in a show. And I've gone, you know, and you just have that moment where you just look and you're like, is this a joke? But she actually just thought it was
like a mythical
thing.
Just
like
dragons.
Yeah, just like all very Game of Thrones just made up for the TV. I'm like, no, this actually happened.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Bearing in mind, my wife has a background in teaching small children. So I did ask her the question, if one of the kids had come up to you and asked about the Vikings, what would you say? And she was like, exactly that.
You're not going to have to watch that on the telly.
Well, you know, like Scooby-Doo's not real.
Yeah, fabulous.
Oh man, no, it was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous day. That was an ace day, and as you say, Ray, the walking and talking was brilliant. It was. You don't even know it's happening.
Soul,
it just starts
goes hand in hand.
coming out of you, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It is. And I think again, something we come back to on this podcast a lot is obviously we're all in the eye of the storm of digital media, and we talked about this because you've got a fantastic. I mean, I had to scroll through your page when we were sat down, didn't we? I was looking at asking you questions about where you'd been, and I was looking at all your photography, and one of them that stuck out to me was your little fox tent, little humble tent in the Arctic circles.
My little one man.
Oh, mate! But the pictures but I think a big part of it is you do tune out from all your phone and that, don't you?
Yeah.
You just get chatting. You're just having to keep your eye on the terrain and where you're heading, and you see a hill in the distance, and you say, "Oh, we're going to stop." Fucking hell, that's a minute away. Keep going, and there's just you're tuned out of all of that, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of.
Well, the best way to get into that is just go for half an hour walk. Put your phone on flight mode while you do it.
Yeah.
Do you feel you need that, Carl? Do you need that time away and that disconnect? Because it's a weird one for you, isn't it? Because obviously, looking at your socials, it's a big part of what you do. You've got to promote yourself on there.
A necessary evil, really.
Yeah.
When Sam was telling me that he doesn't have social media,
well, when we first
so
met,
jealous. I was like, "Oh, that'd be brilliant."
Well, Ray's telling me about you, Cal, about coming on. He's saying, "Oh, and I'm like, I was so close to, because I'm not on for listeners and whatever. I was, and I'm now not, because for my own choice of my mental health, I'm bringing up small children. I just can't. It's too much for me. Do you know what I mean? I was so close to getting on yours and just having a look. Hence, as I just mentioned there, I eventually did when I was with you. But I wanted to meet you first.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to meet you and not sort of come up with 2 and 2 is 6 and, you know.
Okay.
And it's so refreshing. But I get that paradox because I had a podcast back in the day and I'd come off of it personally, but I was using Insta and all that and to promote the podcast and to connect to people. And it's amazing. It's just, I think we're in our infancy of, like anything as a civilization is evolving. It's just learning how to adapt with it, isn't it? And not be consumed by it.
Exactly.
And I think
it's not as easy.
If you can have those healthy habits, like in our house, for instance, with the kids, there's no phones at the table. There's no, and that's mum and dad as well. When we're having meals, it's not, we can't be drifting off into dad's here and mum's there, and just little things in your everyday life and having a healthy balance with it. But for someone like you doing what you're doing, you look at it and it's like, it's insane. It's immense. Like you look at the pictures, you look what you're doing, what you're uncovering, what you're bringing to people. And as we are doing this podcast now, someone's going to go and look at your page. They're doing it right now and go, "Fuck, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go and do that walk. Look at this. That's amazing." It's just the balance for your own. Yeah,
it's all about balance, and it's like a constant battle with myself as well. It's like Instagram it's served me well. I've got a lot of work from it. I've built a career through it. I've made some fantastic friendships with people. So there's a big community of photographers who do very similar things to me. A lot of the trips that I've been on has been with like-minded people.
That was amazing what you told us about that.
Wasn't it? Yeah, that was ace.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. How you met those people online.
So in terms of like traveling places, like for instance, we went to Iceland last year. It was 4 of us. So you have a look. We've got a motorhome. We need 4 people. So we've get in touch with a few who wants to go on this trip. So 4 people, we fill the car, split the costs, and off you go on this mad adventure for a week and just see what you get. But because you're all like-minded, you're all there to take images, all want to shoot content for your social media, then it benefits everybody and it's great fun.
I love that because we said this on the Friday. You're taking those connections through the digital, the upside down, I like to call it.
Yeah.
Right? But then you're taking it into the real world.
Yeah.
you know, and then you're taking the beauty back, putting it back in the upside down for people to see, and it's taking it's actually taking you into the real world in order to bring it back to us to see it. It's a
yeah. But
I love that
there's
about
the
it.
flip side of that is if I'm going to all these nice places and taking photos, there's a lot of examples you'll find where, like, for instance, I've never been myself, but the Faroe Islands, like, that's been pretty much ruined by social media because everyone's going to take their photos for their
Right.
Instagram. So
Yeah.
the landowners have just got pissed off and went, nah, you're not coming on here anymore. Or you're going to pay me so much to be allowed to go and take this photo. So, like, you know, the Isle of Skye in Scotland's another one, you know, like the Old Manor Store, like, and the Quran, they've been ruined by over tourism.
Yeah.
Basically, people just getting out of their cars, going to this one spot, getting that one photo that everybody else has took, and then going back down and posting it on social media.
Hashtag.
And
yeah.
the app's got a lot to answer for because I'll post some stuff from places that no one's really been or seen, and it'll do pretty badly performance-wise, not much engagement, no one's really interested. Post a picture of the Old Manor Store, and it'll go through the roof, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing, I can't wait to go there. And you're like, everybody's seen this before, like, why doesn't anybody want to see anything new? But it's what the algorithm's pushing, it's what the app's saying, like, this has done well before, let's do it again. So you just, like, you see the same things over and over again, so it's trying to sort of battle with that, which is always fun.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one for you, isn't it? Because you feel sort of part of that because your imagery and going to these places is contributing to people just over tourism or
exactly. Yeah, so it's trying to, like, how do you do it and then get a message across that you need to sort of respect these places, you know? It's
look at this, it's fabulous, please go. But
it's a paradox.
Yeah.
It's a paradox. It is a
Yeah.
paradox, isn't it? Because you're having your experience. So for somebody like me, who is, and I've said this, I think I've said this on the podcast before, when my wife and I were like, you know what, we're going to bin the social media, we're just going to be here now, as it was. Things like Christmas, yeah. So we had a load of family around at Christmas one year, and everybody went home after a week and what have you, and we dackered down. And she said to me, she put her head around the dining room. She said, "Did you take any photos? Have you got any photos with your dad? And when you cousin?" I said, "No, I didn't. Did you?" She said, "No." And we went through a little spell of realizing, because it's habitual behaviour, isn't it? Of like, we weren't even getting our phone out. So then we were missing, like, opportunities where you would have used to have taken a photo, you know, because this would be a photo. We're all together at Christmas. But because we were coming away from just photographing everything all the time, we'd kind of hit a phase where it was just like not even getting it out. Whereas now we're back on quite a, like today I was just walking down Whitley Bay today with the kids in the skate park, and I was just looking at my kids on the skate park with all the cool graffiti. There's the mist we've talked about in the last couple of days, and the seas behind him. And I was like, this is fucking gorgeous. This is amazing. And I got my photo. So I'm back on a level with it now, but it's a strange phenomenon we're going through.
It's just like
isn't it?
retraining your brain.
It really is, yeah.
And then I suppose the other downside that I've noticed personally with social media is being able to see what everybody else is doing, and then you compare yourself to them.
Inevitable.
So being connected to so many adventure photographers and then seeing them all on these mad trips all around the world and stuff, and I'm not going anywhere at the moment. I'm like, oh no. Am I doing something wrong? Like, how come I'm not over there doing that?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And that stands to rights, whether you're a mum posting the dinner you've just made.
Absolutely.
Or
applies to everyone.
Everything. It's such a, that's the debilitating part. And I think that's the part when we were learning about it with our kids was like, if you're growing up like that, and like, they're going there and they've got this car and they've got this and they're on this holiday and he's got these boots and he's got those shoes. And like, fuck, you know, when you're 7, like, that's a lot, isn't it?
I remember growing up and it was bad enough just going to school and seeing everybody and like, they've got them Rockports. I want some of them.
You're in your Dunlop Farmer Wellies.
Rockports. She's like, you can have these cheaper, less ones that I found.
Yeah. Do you struggle with that then? Because does it take some of the fun away whereby, you know, we can go and enjoy something if the picture's rubbish, it doesn't really matter, but you've got like a weight of expectation where it's essentially your job. You know, do you feel that it sort of sucks the fun out of it sometimes?
It got to a point where it was, but I just had to sort of change my mindset on the whole thing. So I would normally go somewhere with like, I'm going there, I want this shot. I would love it if the conditions were like X, Y, Z. And like it wouldn't happen, and I'd find myself being like, oh, that was a waste of time, like furious. And I'm like, well, actually, it wasn't a waste of time. You've climbed up a mountain, it's done you the world of good health-wise. Like, so what if it didn't look how it looked in that other photo you've seen? Like, you've still experienced it. So I sort of like tried to switch it around so that I wasn't just shooting it how I thought I wanted it to be. It was more of a documentary style of I'll shoot it how it is, and that's good enough because that's what it looks like.
Your experience is coming first.
Exactly.
And a photo is what it is of that.
Yeah, and then that's sort of trying to document the journey to and from it as well, rather than just
the finished thing.
The one image of, look at this. The Instagram banger, is it?
The one for the gram.
Exactly,
Yeah. So what does the future look like for Adventure Cal then? Where do you think, where would you like your work to take you?
I don't know. People probably wonder why I've got no sort of like ambition and drive, but I'm really just quite happy floating through life and seeing where I end up next. You know, what opportunities will arise.
That's not a bad thing. I think that's great.
Yeah, long term. I mean,
and let's not understate that either, because you're working hard at what you work at, aren't you? And you make sacrifices and commitments to it.
True.
You know, but yeah, you are not nailed down to like a. I mean, you came from as we were talking on Friday, and listeners, 14, 15, 20 years in office corporate world.
Yeah.
So
14 years.
So you know, being in a rigid kind of structure where it's completely different to just getting in your van and just deciding I'm going to go there and get that, you know, like that as you say, floating and being free and following your intuition. It's got to be really rewarding.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be able to say that you've kind of gone out on your own and survived. I struggled in the sort of last few years of that corporate job, just be like a caged animal, you know, and I was like trying to get away and do as much as possible, and then it was always a constant battle not to use all of my holidays too early in the year, and just in case someone came up, you know, my friends would be like, "Oh, do you want to come to? We're going to Norway next week. Are you coming?" I've got no leave left. Now, you know, I don't have that issue. The issue's now mainly financial.
I want to go on that trip. How do I fund it?
That was the other thing that I realised in coming out of full-time employment to do this myself, is that disposable income went down.
But your quality of life.
But the quality of life went way up, and it's back to that word balance. You know, it's I'd rather be earning way less and be a hell of a lot happier than earning more than enough and miserable for 35 hours a week.
Doing over having.
Yeah.
Doing
exactly.
over having, yeah.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of people struggle with that, don't they? You know, just feel trapped in that way of life.
Cog in the machine. You just can't get out.
Yeah. Well, coming back to the social media, and if you are spending a lot of time in there, and you are, as you just allude to, even in your own kind of niche of like looking at other adventure photographers, even in the everyday, if you're spending a lot of time having that bounce back at you that everything everywhere else is all happening and everyone's doing it seemingly more excited or better than you or whatever, or you're just like, that is a lot to wrap your head around, and you don't know that that's happening to you. And it's the cultural tidal wave, it's the zeitgeist. It's like, I think that's what's lovely about what you're doing, and what I felt on Friday was like, we are out in a simple environment and you're left with the simple things, which is conversation, nutrition, exercise. You know what I mean?
You get a massive. What I noticed, you do get that endorphin rush, don't you?
God.
And like you said, the beautiful part about it is totally free.
Yeah.
Other than the parking,
Oh,
which is outrageous around Northumberland.
Yeah.
But I can totally see where, like other things where you get the endorphin rush, it can become addictive. Like, is this something that you need? Like, if you're not out there, do you just get this pang like, I've got to be out?
Let's also say as well, when you said, I'd said about I could feel the food coming, you said, right, we see up there, look, you see that ridge, and I looked at it and I thought, right, that's a canny little minute, that is. And then when we got there, it's not easy to get there. Like, let's not, you know, as lovely as this, we're telling everybody this was, it's not easy. Like, I was feeling it at times in that height. You had to earn that viewpoint. We earned that. We got sat down there like, wow. I mean, we're looking at sheer drops and like something that requires a bit of effort and a bit of commitment. That goes a long way in terms of real reward. You know, the reward we get, that dopamine release you get when you're scrolling and I've got 35 likes, and you know, like that comes and goes. It's like processed food. You know, it's like a fucking McDonald's, isn't it? As opposed to like some whatever home cooked. You know, like this takes a while to cook a healthy meal at home, but you can pull up, bang, eat that good, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
There's something about earning it, I think.
That's one of my favourite things about taking people out hiking is like when everyone's ready for the dinner, I make them do an extra half an hour before we stop. But you appreciate it that a little bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So on the topic of taking people out, is that going to be a thing, like a local guide that you're sort of looking to do? Could people get in touch and maybe if they want to take a group out or they want to get involved, could they get in touch with you and say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason I'm going through my mountain leader training at the moment, I'm aiming to be qualified for that sort of this time next year, is with the outlook of taking groups into the mountains to experience this. And that doesn't have to just be mountainous terrain, you know, the likes of Northumberland. I'm probably going to look to do like maybe photo tours, things like that. But certainly with what you guys were talking about and doing sort of men's mental health walks, I would be more than happy to be involved in something like that.
That would be great, having your expertise and guidance, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It really would. And we even spoke, didn't we, on the day about you'd always wanted to do the whole of the wall. Did you say it's 84 miles?
84 miles, Hadrian's Wall. So it's a bit further if you do. I was going to make it into a coast to coast.
Coast to coast,
so bonus on Solway all the way to Tynemouth back here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We knocked the idea around, didn't we, of possibly doing that together and trying to raise a bit of money and awareness. And yeah, that's something we'll kick around, isn't it? And try and get that moving. That would be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good fun.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're saying that on like day 3. Yeah,
pub to pub.
What did we say? We said what you could do it in 3, but that'd be heavy kicking, wouldn't it? 30 miles a day.
I tried to do it in 3 in the past and failed.
Right,
that was too much. But 5.
4 days, because you want to, like we said at the time, enjoy it. Be able to sit down and savour it, not just be like on the clock.
Exactly.
You know?
And Ray wants to check out all the pints of interest on the way, don't he?
That's going to be the name of the tour, right? Pints of interest.
Oh, those beers were good, eh?
Even that though,
again, because we'd earned them.
Yeah,
we'd earned them. We'd earned them emotionally. Like we'd shared a lot between us. We'd physically expended a hell of a lot.
Mild dehydration, so they slapped off.
Yeah. No,
it's
just everything's better when you've earned it. When you've had to give something to get something, it's always better. And in nature, I mean, what's better than that? There is nothing. I mean, it all sounds a bit fucking corny, and because it's so simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It really is. But in the times we live in, when we're kind of, like I just mentioned, drawn into the tidal wave of culture all the time through these phones and through these screens, it's such a fucking reminder when you're looking at a bit of old Roman stone in a fucking beautiful, endless vista. That like, oh yeah, life's been going on for a minute, hasn't it? You know,
absolutely.
You know,
and none of them had phones.
No, it's it was amazing.
There is something about that, and we've talked about this being in the big blue in the ocean, where you look out and you're like, and you see the power of it, and you're like, actually, my problems maybe not as big as I'm building them up in my head, and I am just a dot in the ocean here. And when we looked out at that point, at that where you said there was a little hole in the wall as a viewing point, I looked out and I just thought, wow, this is vast. Yeah. And I think it
does the same
harks
thing,
back to that, doesn't it? Yeah,
totally.
It's a similar thing.
Totally, yeah. Puts you in your place.
And you're a very sort of level-headed, measured man.
So laid back.
Hey, handsome as well, listeners. Very handsome.
We put some pics up. Right. What is it? Somebody once said to you, you look a bit like.
They told me that I look a bit like Jason Momoa if he'd never found the gym.
Yes, I love it.
There's the backhand.
How much of that can you sort of attribute to the lifestyle that you've got, being out there, getting outdoors? How much does it affect your mental health? And
it's very noticeable, to be honest. Like I said to you on Friday, there's a few times where I struggle to leave the house, and I'm like, I just can't be bothered to go out, even though I know in my head, the second I go for a wander, even if it's just down along the quayside in Newcastle, the second I'm outside and I've had some fresh air, I feel infinitely better. Yeah. But there's always that constant battle. And I guess it's the same with like people who know that when they go to the gym, they're going to feel great afterwards. But beforehand, they're like, I can't think of anything worse. And sometimes you cave in and you just stay in the house and you waste the day. And you're like, what did I do that for? Yeah. You regret it. But but now, if I'm in a foul mood with the world, like fresh air, it's like flicking a switch.
Medicine, isn't it?
And honestly, you just feel so much better.
What a powerful point that is, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I was saying to you, I was down in Seaton Sluice last week taking some photos in Holywell Dean for National Trust, and it was sea fretting. It was just starting to break.
Moody.
The sun was coming through, and it was all these like banks of wild garlic. Everything was vivid and green, and all you could hear was the stream. And I was just like sort of wandering around with this stupid grin on my face, going, "This is mint, absolutely class." I'm having
It's
the
your
best
backyard.
morning,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and it was free. Like, it's so good, it's so good, and it's just like an instant boost. You know, you like just what you need, and it's can't recommend it enough.
Has there ever been a time where you've struggled with your mental health, or are you?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I've been through some like rough stuff in the last sort of like, pre-COVID. Went through the breakdown of a marriage, and at the time I didn't realize the thing that got me through that was walking the dogs twice a day. Wow. I had absolutely no idea at the time, and I was a bit like, oh God, I've got to walk the dogs again. But that like half an hour outside, amazing. And like, you don't realize at the time, but it's like, I attribute walking the dogs to getting me through all of that. And it's fantastic.
I think there's many a pet owner who'll be listening.
Do you know what? That's one of the things I've said. You know, I don't know if I've ever said it here, but I remember being in cabs on the way home at fucking 12 o'clock on a Sunday from a Friday night out, you know, and seeing a dog walker, you know, looking at, you know, a sorry version of myself, no sleep for 48 hours, seeing a dog walk and wishing, why aren't I walking a dog?
Yeah.
Why aren't I normal walking a dog? And another thing that occurred to me as I did start to straighten myself out and get back to being a normal human being was I realise now, and you've just, I think, hit the nail on the head with your own experience there, Cal, is that I used to go out running sometimes and be up early in the morning, see people dedicated, walking their dogs, 5 in the morning. In fact, the morning we went out, I said I'd been out camping with my boy on the beach. So I took my oldest lad out and we'd camped on the beach, and we woke up. I knew we had to be up early because we were in mid-bay, which is going to get a lot of people on it. I was up at 6, 4 or 5 dog walkers up there. The sun's just making its way. There's something, I think, innate about that. Man's best friend, whatever it is, but it's the getting outside, it's the time away, it's the nurture of your friend, this dog, it's the I don't know, there's a detuning, there's something universal about that.
There's an accountability as well.
Yeah.
Like, because if you don't get up and go outside, that dog's going to shit
in
the kitchen.
Yes.
So that's you have to go.
Yeah. Now, I've learned that over the years. You just think...
like the dog shits in the kitchen.
Yeah, the dog shits in the kitchen, eats the cushions, you know,
I think that might be the name of this podcast.
The dog shits in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, it is. It's magic. As I've gotten older, wisdom is a wonderful thing as you get older, innit? You know, realising, oh no, there's more to it, you know, like, I think as the world gets busier, little simple things like that you've just alluded to, Carl, you know, getting you through a difficult time. Yeah, that's something to hold on to, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think tripping over the lead here. I think getting out there, and I did ask you this question on Friday, didn't I? Do you prefer being out on your own or being out with people?
And I think my response was both.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoy going out on my own.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to sort of set a pace that's comfortable for everyone. Just off you go. And I often find myself pushing myself, like doing ridiculous distances when I'm on my own, and I'm just like, let's see how far I can push myself. Let's see if I can beat this segment on Strava. Just daft things like that, because competing with yourself.
That's healthy to a point, though, isn't it?
It's good, but I always make sure when I'm out on my own, I never have headphones in or anything like that. I'm always
present,
listening to what's going on, you know, and you see some amazing stuff when you're out on your own. You know, like the wildlife encounters that you'll have because there's not a big group of you, and like I'm quite a quiet walker. Like I don't know what it is. I always used to like try and sneak around the woods as a kid, but without making any noise. So God knows why, but like I'm quite quiet. I get frustrated when I'm out walking with other people, and like all you can hear is like feet going, and like everything's flying away miles away, and you're like, oh, just quiet, man. Just look what you can see if you're quiet. So yeah, I absolutely love being out on my own. But
you
also,
must have loved Friday, just my heavy breathing and stomping about and tracing my feet.
No, because like I say, going out with a group's fantastic, because especially if it's like a small group, like the 3 of us going out, because like, the conversations that you have are fantastic. You know, just being able to sort of like share the experience as well with someone. You know, like some of my best friends, like it's because we've been out on hikes and like our relationship's just gone like up to the next level because you've got this bond, you've got this really cool experience that you've shared.
Wow.
And it's like
That's what I loved about what I said to you when we started, when I didn't delve into sort of your pages and your Instagram before I met you. And then it's like I've known you for 5 years after the end of that hike, because we've just talked and I had no preconceptions, just as it is. This guy's sound as fuck. Really sound guy.
It's a good thing. I've got friends who I don't see very much. They've got like busy lives, kids, like careers. And I've done like a couple of trips with them. As my mate Glenn, who won't mind me mentioning him, he's a firefighter now. And like I've done a couple of overseas trips with him. Like we were in Morocco a couple of years ago and climbed Mount Toubkal. And like when we see each other, we still talk about that like it was like yesterday, and you've got that bond because you've done something like incredible together. And it's like a super cool thing to have. So I always like, when I've got friends who have not done anything like that, could I come and do like a hike with you sometime? I love out like that because it's like, I'm going to change your life.
I always think of it as, I always call them a pilgrimage. It is like you're going on a pilgrimage, isn't it? That's what it is. It's like you're away from everything to do this particular thing that nobody's done in terms of, we're normally doing our everyday lives. We're at our jobs, we're at the football, we're doing whatever. And we're going to go there to that part of the country and we're going to do that. And it requires all the things we've mentioned, effort and, it's a pilgrimage. It's
the weird thing about it, I feel, is it feels like a safe space as well. So I think, you sat in a cafe with someone, a friend, or you sat in a pub in that environment, the conversation mightn't be as real as it will be out there because it just feels like a safe space. It's organic.
Natural.
There's a lot of ears in cafes and pubs, and so you never really let your guard down fully, I don't think. Whereas when you're outside, sheep can't speak English. So.
They didn't tell us what the cling film was, did they?
I wonder if they've got Geordie accents. But you must find that when you're out with people, like the conversations you end up having are probably conversations you wouldn't have had in other environments.
Yeah, definitely. There's definite like rawness to what you get, like what you talk about. Yeah, people do tend to be incredibly open when they're out, and they're at that nearing that point of physical exhaustion. But you also will have some of the most bizarre, hilarious conversations you've ever had. Because,
we had a few, didn't we?
You just like your brain just takes you into the obscure, and you have some great ideas and some awful ideas, but it's like it's good fun, and it's stuff that you can always refer back to, and it's like go back to that like bond that you have with people that you spend with outside.
That's a really good point about ideas. Because if I had something going on in my head and it was just a scrambled mess because my brain works in a certain way, I used to love going out for a run, and I always thought that by the time I got back from that run, I've worked it out. And I don't know what it was about that process, but it must be the same with the walking as well. Do you feel like if you've got something going on and you're trying to work something out, you go out on that hike and you come back and you're like,
clear your head, literally. Yeah.
Especially solo hikes, I always come up with like loads of ideas when I'm out doing active things I want to do. So I end up like having to stop and write notes up because I will forget it. My brain is like quick fire all the time. So it's a good space to sort of clear your head of all of the nonsense that's going on, and then just like focus on these ideas, nurture them as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a powerful point, isn't it? One thing I do want to ask you, and I ask every guest that comes on, and it is quite heavy, about the Northeast. I know you absolutely love the Northeast, Mr. Northumberland.
Certainly do.
And love the people that make up the Northeast. So it is, for me, it's an interesting point when you look at how we are struggling as a region with mental health, and the figures that we've got around suicide are some of the worst in the UK. Why do you think it is?
I've heard you ask this on all of the podcasts, and I still can't for the life of me think of a good response. It's something that it's always like blown my mind that like so many people in this area get to that point.
Have you been affected by it?
I've been aware of a handful of people who've took their own lives.
Yeah,
certainly, but not very close. And it's a horrible thing. You see how it affects sort of not just the immediate family but the community.
Well, there's a stat that they've looked at for every suicide. They think roughly the ripple effect is over 130 people, and you feel it as a community, don't you?
Yeah.
if it happens in your region, in your town, in your village, it's felt by everyone.
Yeah.
And that is a strange thing, because we do have large sense of community in a lot of the Northeast, and we have talked a bit how that has been fractured, and is that maybe contributing to it? You know, the fact that the industries that used to form these communities and form these bonds, that they've now broken away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why we're struggling so much as a region? I don't know. I don't know the answer, and that's why we ask everybody.
That's right.
It's just
fair enough. No, it is a great question, and it's one that I wish that I could answer. I mean, I can only, the importance of like breaking down those walls and talking to people. It's so important. I was quite a like proud individual, and never thought like therapy. That's not something. Why would I want to do that? But then, like after I mentioned before the breakdown of my marriage, I went to therapy for a handful of sessions, and the benefits were incredible. I was like, why have I not done this earlier? Like people say, like you'll go to the gym X number of days every week, keep your body fit, but like your mind needs to be looked after as well. So I feel like therapy is something that everybody should do, even if you think you're fine. Because the benefits were staggering.
Well, that's a good point, because stigma, something we always talk about, and this area, bringing it back to the area, hard working, industrious area, big, strong men bringing home the bacon, I always think as well, like my take on as I speak to more people here in the podcast and more people up here now I live up here, is the people up here, I think, and I've said it before on the podcast, if you were to ask most people in the UK, who were like the soundest people in the UK, Geordie's is right up there, because there's something about the accent, there's something about the crack, there's just something about the welcoming, warm nature of the people up here. And some of the people I've asked privately outside of the podcast, when I've said, what is it? What is the reasons for these difficult statistics? And it's got put to me, or at least I've understood it in this way, like almost as if the compassion that exists up here for one another almost overrides the individual sometimes. Like we're thinking about people are just looking out for other people.
Yeah.
And almost carrying their own thing in the back.
Well, you hear this a lot, where they'll go, I didn't want to burden you with my issues. Yeah. And I think that is a big thing up here. People will do anything for anyone.
Yes.
But they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly talk about the struggles I'm having.
Right.
Because I don't want to.
Isn't
I don't want to put that
paradox,
on you.
That?
Yeah. But those people typically are the ones that would do anything for anyone,
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a strange concept. But hopefully, just like you're talking now, though, and you're breaking down that stigma by just saying, I went to therapy.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say, and we talk about it through the work we do. I was sort of forced into therapy, had a bit of an intervention from a family member, because I was in a really bad way. But it was all harking back to that point where blokes like me do not talk to strangers about how they're feeling.
No.
And I knew deep down I was struggling. I didn't know why. And then I ultimately reached crisis point, and I've sat in front of this stranger, professional, and I just cried for 3 sessions, 3-hour-long sessions. I cried to a stranger, and it was one of the most powerful things that I've ever went through, and ultimately attributed to saving my life and definitely changing my life. And for the last 15 years, I've been in and out of therapy. Like you say, sometimes I'll be driving there and I'm like, why am I going here today? I've got nothing to talk about. I feel sound. Everything's great. Work's great. And I come out of there and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that that was going on. And it's not until you're in that space and you start opening up and you don't even realize what's in there.
I think it's important for listeners, all of us, to grasp that we talk about this at work, and in my particular role at work, when I'm talking to guys, we hear the word crisis all the time. The Ukraine crisis, the Gaza crisis, the whatever, cost of living, the cost of materials if you're in the building, like there's this big crisis, and we associate crisis with this big thing that's happening somewhere else. But just being human, we've touched on it in this conversation as we deal with phones. and deal with digital communication and information just all the time. Like, you don't need to be in a big crisis. Just being a human being, managing families. We talked a lot about families on Friday, and how your family of origin, your mum, your dad, your siblings, and you know, your children, you're growing up. Things separate because lives go on different tracks, and then maybe there's, you know, it's not straightforward. We don't, you know, just everyday life, just keeping your shit together as a human who's got a job, who's paying the mortgage, who's got, you know, no health issues. Nothing's really a crisis. But listen, being a human being, you got to talk. You have to talk. We're all trying to make sense of this fucking complex existence, aren't we? We really are. We really are.
Definitely. And then that's like goes back to getting people outside and going for walks.
Yeah, you go.
Getting back to
like
basics.
it's I find it so much easier to sort of break those walls down and be open and talk whilst in the outdoors. You don't even realize you're doing it. You just, you know, we touched on some pretty deep stuff when we were out on Friday, and it was just like,
yeah, like where did that come from?
exactly, yeah.
Well, that's our next
out it came.
question that we normally ask is, you know, if you had advice for listeners, what is any one thing or any one bit of advice would you give to people to cope? And I think you've just said it there, haven't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Get yourself 30 minutes of fresh air every day.
And talk.
And talk.
Yeah, clear your head and don't be scared to speak.
Absolutely.
Because we all need to speak, don't we?
Of course.
I think the problem is when you're in that place as well, you build it up so much in your head that you just think nothing's going to work, and it sounds daft to say it because they just seem like the most simplest things in the world. Talking,
doesn't it? I think that is the fucking weird paradox. Is it's right in front of you.
Yeah,
it's right there. You can turn to someone and just say something.
Yeah,
and they'll listen, and then they'll tell you something that they needed to say because you've created a space.
Yeah.
Or you can, like you say, Cal, get outside and just get some fresh air, and then your head clears, and you put some order to whatever the chaos is in your mind that's been building up.
And just telling somebody something and not expecting them to solve it, just by telling them, like, makes it so much easier.
The lift.
You realise, actually, probably not that much that needs solved here, but just by sharing it, it's made it infinitely better.
And how many times have we? Sorry, Ray. How many times have you had the relief of telling somebody something because it just, and then realising that they're telling you that they've had that as well. They're going through that as well. I felt like that as well.
Exactly.
And you go, fuck yeah, we're in it together.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Powerful stuff.
Absolutely, man.
But I think we are definitely gonna try and set up a walk and talk group, and hopefully we can get you involved with that, Carl. Because
certainly,
it's amazing.
Taking people out and getting them lost in the middle of Northumberland.
Create a crisis.
Yeah. But for anyone listening that would be interested,
get in touch.
Drop us a message. We will be putting some more posts on about it. But it is powerful stuff, and totally felt that on Friday.
And today. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being patient with us.
No, thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was amazing. I've made another new friend. Thank you to this wonderful town, this wonderful podcast. Ray introducing me to just awesome people who are all talking, and it's helping my noggin, I can tell you that. So thank you.
Good.
Cheers,
pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, you, Carl.
Mate. We'll put some details on your socials and how people can reach you.
People. Do you want to shout out now where they find you, Cal?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram, it's adventure_Cal. I believe it's the same on Facebook. Or my website, it's just adventurecal.co.uk.
Excellent.
Fabulous.
Nice one, man.
Keep on keeping on, mate.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.